Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Not So Expert podcast, where we will learn about current and important world issues from the experts of the future. I'm your host, Naveed, and with today's panel, we are discussing the current coronavirus pandemic, hoping to learn something new or just gain a different perspective on things we already know. So let's get straight into it. On today's panel, we have a recently graduated doctor, a master's of social and applied psychology student, a master's in business administration student, and a master's in electrical engineering graduate. Here we go.
Hello everyone, my name is Saira Bhatti. I am an MBBS graduated doctor from Pakistan. I recently just started up at the hospital. So I'll be discussing the medical aspects of the COVID-19. So a virus is basically just a submicroscopic infectious agent, and what's interesting is that it's actually not considered a living organism because it's actually just a strand of DNA or RNA which may or may not be enveloped by a protein coat and replicates only inside living cells of an organism. And it forces that host cell to make copies of itself. And it can actually infect literally anything, animals, plants, bacteria, and even other viruses. What's actually interesting about the COVID-19 is it's actually not that unique. We've had epidemics such as this in the past 20 years with the SARS-CoV outbreak in 2003 and the Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome in 2012. And these were major epidemics. In fact, the SARS-CoV shares 86% of its genome with the COVID-19. And all three of these do belong to the same group of viruses called the coronaviruses. So I suppose, if considering what makes it unique from the SARS-CoV epidemic is there are multiple theories. One of which being that the outbreak initially started in Wuhan, and Wuhan at that time of the outbreak is one of the largest cities in central China, and it's a major transport hub and center of industry and commerce, with the biggest train station, with the biggest airport, with the biggest, largest deep water port. All of these would make it so that transmission would increase. On top of that, the urban population of China has increased, and the other theories in this is that the infectious period is different. What I mean by this is that with the SARS-CoV, the viral load would be highest after the symptoms had revealed themselves. So when they introduced these same measures that we are in right now with the SARS-CoV in 2003, the person would already be ill, by which time they would start spreading the disease. With the COVID-19, before you have revealed your symptoms, you are already infectious. So you are not aware you are sick and you are spreading the disease to others. On top of it, the transmissibility is higher, the clinical spectrum is different, what that means is we can't really say, oh, person coming in with flu, we can't really say, oh, do they have COVID-19 or not? We would have to test. And this is not something that they knew initially. Other than that, the community spread is more prominent. With the SARS-CoV, it was more dependent on the hospital transmission. And in this one, there's more of a community spread. So a lot of these things were not things that we were prepared for when the epidemic initially hit. And so it spread to a point where now the measures seem a bit inefficient. It's called the COVID-19 because the first case was reported in 2019. Exactly. The other name for it is SARS-CoV-2 because it is a variant of the SARS-CoV that we saw in 2003. Yes, if we do carry out with these same measures that we have right now in place, these are the same measures that eradicated SARS-CoV in the first place. So these are expected to eventually, people follow it properly, this would eradicate the COVID-19 as well, inshallah. It spreads mostly it is any other flu, basically. So it spreads mostly through respiratory droplets. So suppose I am sick and I am someone who is coughing. These releases these droplets into the air that have the virus within them. And if you are a person that's standing very close to me and you happen to inhale these particles or these particles land on your nose or your mouth, that is a form of transmission. Other than that, another thing that we have to take into account are fomites. And that basically means that if I have my phone right here and I cough and I touch my phone and then somebody else picks up my phone, then that virus is on your hand. And then you use your hand and then you touch your face, that organism is now inside of you. This is why basically they are implementing guidelines on if you are sick, you should be wearing a face mask, because that's preventing you from giving the disease to someone else. As a healthy individual, wearing a face mask is not technically helping you, but it is helping the community, because you might be sick, you might not know it yet, because this, as I said, this virus shows very late on the symptoms. So with no sort of vaccine or a definitive treatment plan or proven treatment plan in place, the way we are treating this is how we would treat any other sort of acute respiratory distress syndrome, which is supportive management. Supportive management basically means that we are treating your symptoms as they present themselves to us. So if a patient comes in and they have very mild symptoms, what we will recommend, because we have limited bed space, we will tell them to go back home, self-isolate at home, and treat it like any other flu. Take fluids, take plenty of rest, and the virus will leave your body if you are a healthy individual. If a person comes to us and they are severely ill, for example, they're presenting with shortness of breath, they're showing that they are possibly developing pneumonia. In that case, we will admit the patient and we will provide supportive care. If they need oxygen, we will provide oxygen. If they need fluids, IV lines, we will provide those. But in the meantime, there's no proven care. There has been some research into using hydroxychloroquine, but that has not been peer-reviewed yet. It hasn't been properly analyzed yet. And there is a broad-spectrum antiviral on the market as well, remdesivir. But again, it has not been peer-reviewed. It hasn't passed the preliminary aspects yet. So we can't really say that that is an actual treatment. At the meantime, supportive management is the route that we're going for.
Yeah, hi, I'm Sarah. I'm currently doing my master's in social and applied psychology. Yeah, so firstly, we saw people buying out things that protected themselves, so hand sanitizers and protective equipment. And this is common in emergency situations, because this was the advice we were given about washing our hands and doing so. But however, as things began to progress for the worse, we then started to see an increase in panic buying, such as buying an obscene amount of toilet paper. This loss of control was fueled by uncertainty of what was to happen. And we know from past research that when we are uncertain, we tend to look for other behaviours, the behaviours of others, for a frame of reference. And we were presented with so many images on the news, on our social media, of empty shelves of toilet paper running out. And this caused the chain reaction of the mass panic buying. So mental health is not really my area of expertise, but I'll try and provide some knowledge behind this. So those with mental health problems will find this time extremely difficult and challenging. The restrictions which have been put on our lives will cause disruptions for those living with mental health. For example, those who have challenges around food and eating may find the change for shopping for food may disrupt their recovery or techniques they're using to keep well. It will also be difficult for those seeking their usual support networks, as services, which are already under extreme pressure, are facing even more. However, services are moving online and over the phone. The Every Mind Matters scheme has suggestions on how to look after our mental well-being while staying at home, such as prime practical things, whether that's how to get household supplies or discussing with your local services about accessing their support, staying connected with others, either over the phone or by social media use. Do not stay glued to the news. Limit your time receiving information about the outbreak and only use trustworthy sources. There are more suggestions, obviously, but over on their website, so please do check them out if you need them. So past research into mass emergencies and crowd behaviour, the theory that we become more individualistic, we become sort of debunked. There is more evidence that we come together as a group, as we all have a shared identity, meaning we work together to overcome what is occurring. And we have already seen this today with altruism and generosity, as people are reaching out to one another and offering to buy each other's shopping, and if they can't go out, and the clap for the NHS every Thursday. Stephen Taylor published a book just weeks before the outbreak occurred about the psychology of pandemics. And he suggests in his research from previous outbreaks such as SARS, that these can have a lasting effect on the psychology of the population. this is the first outbreak that we're experiencing in the digital world, of school lessons being taught online, work meetings taking place over video call, our groceries are being delivered via online shopping. This outbreak has entrenched the direction we were already heading via online, and normality may never fully return. However, the future implications of the coronavirus are still uncertain, and from what we've seen with people coming out to help each other, this may be the shining light that we do need.
Just a quick break here to talk about one of our sponsors, Ear for Business, a listening ear and signposting service connecting small and micro business owners with current and former MBA business students that have an ear for business.
Hi, so I'm Daniel Hansen from the University of Kent, currently an MBA student, and I'll be giving a business perspective to what the COVID-19 has done to the entire market world. Yeah. Currently, as the entire global world is facing very, very difficult situations when it comes to businesses. We are having a lot of layoffs right now. Most businesses have shut down, especially the restaurants, the pubs, and the non-essentials. And we know generally, or a large majority of people actually earn their minimum wages from these particular sectors. So the unemployment rates right now, as opposed to the previous years, has increased exponentially. In the US, in the UK, and even certain parts of Africa, all facing this particular pandemic, this problem. Also, there has been a shift in the stock market. Certain companies that actually had very high values have reduced exponentially, and the others that were not necessarily regarded have increased, like Netflix, like the pharmaceutical companies, like tech companies like Citrix have all like just risen up because a lot of people are using these technologies to be able to cope with this particular pandemic. Whereas the oil companies are really, really losing out. Oil prices have reduced drastically. People's thirst for oil has really dried up because we are not going anywhere. Nobody has any instance to drive their cars anywhere. We just walk to the essentials and come back. So yeah, that's also happened. The IMF actually currently says that if things go this way, the global markets would shrink by 3%, basically. However, if we recoup from this pandemic by the second half of 2020, we'll be able to get back everything that we've lost and increase by 5.3%. For individuals per se, especially those who are unemployed, there are stimulus checks that are going around, and this is not only in the UK, it's in the US as well, to support people who have been unemployed because of this pandemic. And everyone is eligible for it. You have to meet the eligibility criteria to be able to get it, especially if you have a threshold where you earn every year. Your annual threshold should put you in a point where you can actually earn from the government. Secondly, the government has put a coronavirus job retention scheme where instead of businesses laying people off, they can actually pay them an amount of money that would last them for 3 months. So people don't actually have to be at home, not being paid and without a job. Suspended pay taxes, value-added taxes for most companies. You don't need to pay right now. You have to the end of the year to be able to meet this the financial payments that you're supposed to make. And then last, I think there is a coronavirus large business interruption loan scheme for large firms. Yeah, for large firms who need a loan to be able to back their operations and all. It's easier for them because the government serves as a guarantee for the loan that you need to get. I think there's an amount of money that they can get, not more than 2,500 or something like that. And yeah, it's helping businesses especially, yeah. Coming out of the lockdown, I think a lot of employers actually are considering adding the whole remote working as part of their operations because they've seen that most people have been significantly more productive. Like people have been more productive than being in the office space. In the office space, they have distractions of their staff members, and being in that confinement like reduces your ability to be very creative. So employers are actually looking into this, and more employees would be able to apply and request for remote working. You can work anywhere you want to work as long as you're able to meet the targets that have been set for you. Also, I'm seeing employees, or I'm hearing from other people that they are willing to go for a 10% payout if their companies are going to allow them to work from home work on holidays, work on vacation, where whichever one they come to an agreement with, they would go with, and it's actually working incredibly for them. I think this would work for people who are in the creative fields, people who are in digital marketing, because it has increased exponentially. It's very easily accessible to people right now. Everybody is practically on their phones, on their laptops, online, in the cloud. So that's a very easy way to get all these people to be able to get your products and get your information across, basically. And then also in the areas of journalism, a lot of people, journalists don't need to be in the office to be able to write their papers, to be able to give in their articles. So for people in those areas, people in journalism, people in consultancy, people in digital marketing can easily benefit from remote working, rather than those of us who are the doctors and those who need to actually go into the office, those who are lab techs. That shift is going to happen. More people can stay at home, whereas other people, depending on the kind of job that you actually have to go in. Yeah.
A word from another one of our sponsors, GenSpec Limited, a startup working on multiple projects to enhance local economies. During the current lockdown, GenSpec is offering free business and data consultancy services, as well as helping businesses continue to generate revenue by going online.
Hello, my name is Anshuman. I'm currently a PhD student here at Kent. I'm doing my PhD in electronics engineering. So I basically work with antennas and circuit designing and mostly the hardware part of electronics predominantly. I'll start with 4G. Why we needed 4G was we had the mobile networks up until 1G, 2G, 3G, where G stands for generation. So first generation, second generation, third generation, and so on. So we had the 3G up until 2012, 12, 13, 14, around that time. So we had the standard BlackBerry BBM, BlackBerry messengers, and all those things. So technically, we were able to access data on our phones, but we couldn't, let's say, access a lot of videos or make video calls and do things like that. Hence came the need for us to use 4G. 4G enabled us to transmit more packets through the signals, so that because we could transmit most packets and therefore more data, more quantas, we had a lot of data coming into the devices so that we could access video calls using our mobile devices where we stand at the moment right now. But the thing is, because the smartphones have gotten smarter and smarter as the time has progressed, so the cluster of data transmission, it has reached sort of its peak in the 4G networks. So we need a network which offers us a wider range of frequencies for us to transmit the data, so that we can use it to, let's say, have better quality videos, stream, let's say, 4K videos and stuff like that, like just the next step in what we have at the moment. Also, another thing is the limit for 4G network is somewhat around 4,000 people per square kilometer. If you have more people than that, then you do have a drop-in call, drop-in signals, and you face all those kind of standard issues. In 5G, the range will go up from 4,000 per square kilometer to about 1 million per square kilometer. So it can go further, it can give us a wider range, more frequency band, and that should give us the next future thing, because we will have a wider coverage no matter what part of the world we are, we will get a wider range. And now with a certain Mr. Elon Musk going through with his Starlink program, we should be able to access faster internet, even if we are in the middle of an ocean or something. So that could help us quite a great deal. Coming onto the fears of
Yeah.
Like, pardon me for laughing me in between because I find it hilarious. These claims from people. So the claim that 5G causes coronavirus comes from the fact that the radiation emitted by the mobile towers are observed by human bodies, and we do get to face a bit of radiation from that, which I would say is in fact true to some extent. But the fact is, for you to catch such a disease or something like that, you have to be, let's say, living inside a mobile tower for 10 years in your lifetime to maybe have some effect on your body or on your state in some way. This fear that it can cause you coronavirus comes from the fact that we are living in the social media age, and every person has an opinion of some sort, and some of them have a fond belief in conspiracy theories and the other. Some say it is a ploy to topple the government, it is a ploy to do this, it is a ploy to topple China from gaining superiority, it is a ploy to delay 5G. Like, you have all these kind of conspiracy theories going around. And I would say the simplest way for people to figure out what it is just read about 5G. Like, I'll just brush it aside. And like those claims that, okay, because of that, you may face this, mobile networks are going to cause you headaches and you will be struggling with all these problems. You will get coronavirus. They'll keep on coming year after year, season after season. And the simple thing is, do your own research. These waves cannot harm you at all. They can't harm you that much unless you are exposed to them regularly at very high levels and you experience it on a regular basis, consistently, 24/7. Then maybe you face some sort of radiation in your body, and that's happening to us anyway nowadays.
Yeah.
You take a flight, you are absorbing quite a lot of radiation through that. So there's no way you can escape being exposed to some or the other form of radiation. This is basically just a brainchild of some conspiracy theory and nothing more. Like, I find it absolutely ridiculous.
There's a lot more fear mongering going on, and I think it stems from just people trying to get a lot of support towards them for whatever reason, and also now again, because of the digital age, we're more able to just spread it across instantly, and I think there's some sort of psychology about making an easy enemy somewhere, and so just pin the blame somewhere. So thank you. I think from all of us, we've learned a different thing from each of us, and that's been educational.